procedures will apply. Parties are not required to give evidence under oath, but are reminded that the deliberate telling of untrue statements is a criminal offence under Section 158 of the Licensing Act 2003. Parties will provide evidence seated. Any question, comment or statement must be addressed through myself as the chairman. There will be no direct cross-examination of any person by any other person. I have the right to intervene and interrupt any person if that person is providing evidence that's not relevant to the proceedings or in relation to the licensing objections under which representations have been made. For this application, this is public safety and the prevention of public nuisance. In order which evidence is given to this subcommittee is as follows. First of all, A, the licensing officer will present the application and report. B, secondly, the applicant/representative will present their case. And C, third, responsible authorities will present their cases. The subcommittee members and I may ask questions at any time during the procedure of any person in order to clarify a matter. Once all submissions have been heard, no further questions are necessary. The subcommittee will withdraw to consider all the evidence before determining the application. The subcommittee will provide a final determination today. In the event that a full determination cannot be provided today, this will be formally written and sent by post to all interested parties forthwith. I will now ask the licensing officer to present the application.
Good afternoon. Members of the committee have before them an application for a new premises licence which has been submitted by Ms Holly Posnett relating to a premises called the Butcher's Arms, which is situated at 68 Canterbury Road in Peterborough. Relevant representations against the application have been received from Peterborough City Council's pollution control team in their capacity as a responsible authority. There have also been representations against the application from 5 residents in their capacity as other persons. We have also received 132 representations in favour of the application, again from other persons. We have received no representations from any of the other responsible authorities, which include Cambridgeshire Constabulary and Cambridgeshire Fire and Rescue Service. Taking into account that all parties have had the opportunity to read the report, it is not my intention to go through the report in fine detail, but just to draw attention to the significant area of the application. Paragraph 3 deals with the authorisations and hours applied for. In essence, the application is for the on and off sales of alcohol between Monday to Thursday from noon to 10:30 p.m, Friday noon to 11 p.m, Saturday 10 a.m. to 11 p.m, Sunday 10 a.m. to 10:30 p.m, and on New Year's Eve from noon to 12:30 a.m. on New Year's Day. Chair, unless I can be of any other assistance, I will ask that you commence the hearing in order that members can consider the representations that have been received and take such steps that are necessary and proportionate for the promotion of the licensing objectives.
Thank you very much for that. We proceed now with the applicant. I'm going to invite Holly Posnett and Andrew Simmons to present their cases.
Sorry. I'd just like to apologise on behalf of Andrew Simmons. He's actually on holiday and struggling to connect, I believe, so it will just be myself.
Oh, okay, thank you.
So firstly, I'd just like to start off by letting the room know, for those who are not aware, what a micropub is. So they are traditionally known as a community asset, providing much needed community space and breathing life into our streets and villages, as well as providing local employment opportunities. They are small in size and provide space for people to come and meet another friendly face and talk amongst friends. And this is exactly what we want for our business, by providing our local community with an alternative venue to come and socialise. We can continue to support our local community groups by giving them a safe meeting place and continue to support our charities both locally and nationally. At the beginning of this month, we held a charity event at the Butcher's Arms, a coffee and cake morning, where we had a great turnout and support from the local community, We raised over £800 for Dementia UK in just one morning. I've also just this week found out that I've been nominated for a BBC Radio Make a Difference Award for raising over £25,000 for Sue Ryder Thorpe Hospice over the last few years. Along with hundreds of thousands of pounds, both Andy Simmons, who's the DPS, and I have raised for local charities such as Help Wait School, Halley's Wish and Jensen's Journey, along with Great Ormond Street and Macmillan Cancer Support, just to name a few. We have both been recognised in the city and presented with a Peterborough City Council Civic Award for our contributions to the local community. All of these fundraising events have been held in our previous licensed public house, and we want to continue our fundraising efforts in our new micropub if our licence is granted. But just to touch on the negative comments, representation 1, pollution control. I do not understand why this representation is considered as an objection. I have no problem with any of the 6 public nuisance conditions detailed, which already have and will continue to be respected. Representation 2. This objector is an infrequent garage user, overemphasising his real access needs to the garage which he rents. He rents the garage only and not the parking in the service yard, which is owned by a completely different entity. He refers to noise issues, many of which are already prevalent in the area, as the takeaway Chinese has a continual stream of visitors collecting meals during their evening opening times and has been in situ for several years without any noise complaints being issued. At no time has there been any suggestion of people drinking at the front of the premises, and this is strictly monitored. Representation 3 seems to have concerns mainly about the current opening times whilst business has been operating on a temporary licence. I am sure that the Licensing Regulation Department will consider what has been granted to other similar businesses and permit similar for this venue, as well as considering the LPA recommendation in condition C3. The reason we have applied for these opening hours is to maximise the financial viability of the business and to give us the choice to operate between these hours, taking advantage of bank holidays and public holidays, etc. It is not our intention to open for all of these hours, but as stated, we would just like the flexibility to operate our business according to business demand. Representation 4 objects to the opening hours being requested for the micropub, but again makes no mention to the traffic and customers visiting the Chinese takeaway located in the same block of premise. I fail to see how the objector can differentiate between the two businesses. Representation 5 for noise. We have taken regular readings in the vicinity at the Butcher's Arms, especially at busy times, with the door open and also with the door closed. At no time has the noise level been excessive or intrusive that the residents would even notice any background noise from the micropub. If we felt that there was an excess of noise in the micropub, then the door was closed. Smokers are not permitted to do so at the front of the premises, and the minimal number of smokers do so at the rear of the premises in a smaller part of the yard away from a residential area. This is strictly managed by the business. And whilst carrying out work on the premises for a few days, cones were used to allow ease of access for longer lengths of material into the premises, which couldn't be accessed from the rear of the premises. And I believe this is common practice for any contractor wishing to unload for a specific amount of time. I think it's also important to note that these parking bays are for the use of the visitors to the retail outlets and not to the local residents. A business owner living directly opposite regularly uses up to 2 of the parking bays every day for his business, which are large vans. Opening hours, again, have already been mentioned. And then representation 6. This refers to the Neighbourhood Council's earlier representation and highlights 3 points. Firstly, the reference to live music is an out-and-out fabrication. At no time has anything been posted on our social media platforms advertising live music on the premises. This does actually make me...
I'm sorry, could you just repeat that last statement? I didn't quite catch that.
The reference to live music, at no time has anything been posted on our social media platforms advertising live music. There was an objection saying that we'd advertised it all over social media, which is in fact incorrect. It does make me wonder, though, if they've maybe confused us with some of the other micropubs in the local area who regularly do have, advertise and host live music events in their micropubs. Yes, we do also have TV screens in the premises, which may or may not be switched on, depending on whether the customers wish to watch a particular programme, and for example, things like the FA Cup, Formula 1 or golf, etc. But even then, the sound has not been switched on in respect of customers with no interest in the programme. Opening hours, again, have already been mentioned. Representation 7. All the points raised in this final representation are similar to all of the ones previously mentioned. Point 1 states, micropubs are small in size and operate within limited hours. agree. This outline precisely the nature of our business. Point 2, the current opening hours. We currently have been operating on a temporary licence until obviously after this hearing. Point 3, residential area. Our business does respect the current conditions specified in the Peterborough Local Plan 24th of July 2019, section LP17. And point 4 states many residents. In total, possibly only 4 objections, but there is no mention that at least one of the residents of Ripon Close is quite happy with the idea of a micropub, and they're looking forward to having the opportunity to use it. So in conclusion, I'm not a newcomer to the licence trade. I have over 15 years experience, and Andy Simmons, the DPS, has over 20 years experience, both of us in managing and running a thriving, busy and popular local free house in Warrington Centre until its recent closure. We are both well versed in how to successfully operate and manage a popular public house, and this downscaled version of a public house will present no issue to the business in terms of nuisance or noise pollution, which seems to be the main consideration for objections listed above. Furthermore, whilst operating on temporary licences, we have welcomed dozens of visitors anxious to check out this brand new Warrington micropub. As you may imagine, we have been exceptionally busy on the days that we have been open, but our customers have quickly adapted to respecting our close neighbours' privacy and concerns relating to any noise levels. This is clearly proven, given that this period we have not been made aware of a single noise-related complaint from the City Council, which sort of suggests that the noise concerns are wholly exaggerated and much less prevalent than the local residents have anticipated. We want to work with the local community and not against them. We believe our micropub would have a real positive effect on the local area. We have had great feedback from so many of our visitors, and we know, if given the chance, we can make a real positive impact and be an asset to Warrington Village. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. Congratulations on the award you received for your charitable efforts.
Thank you.
We now move to the stage where I invite my colleagues on this subcommittee to ask questions. Gentlemen. Councillor Hiller.
Thank you, Chair. You mentioned there have been no complaints to the licensing authority about excess noise. Have there been complaints about any other activities within the business?
Not as far as I'm aware of.
Not as far as you're aware. Okay. And how long have you held a temporary licence?
We've had 21 days over the month of May and beginning of June.
21 days over the month of May and going into June?
Yeah.
Thank you. Is that temporary licence now expired, I take it?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Councillor
Chair.
Halsey.
I've got 2 questions, and I'm not trying to split hairs, but you made reference to the other micropubs within the city and their opening hours. My understanding, unless I'm incorrect, is that you're asking for different hours to the hours of the other pubs. That's the first question. And the second question is that you make reference to the Chinese takeaway and people coming to pick up their food. I fully accept that, and I fully accept the traffic noise and the traffic movements that happen with that. But most Chinese takeaways that I know aren't still having deliveries or having takeaways picked up after 10:30 at night, and you will be open at 10:30 at night if this is granted. So whilst I accept during normal business hours there are those movements, that last hour or so there isn't, is my understanding.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I think they do close at 10:30, and quite often I've been out the back and their kitchen doors are wide open and they're cooking till midnight at some points. So I believe that we're not going to be open with doors open, banging woks around, which is what I have heard them do. And in answer to your first question on the other micropubs, I do believe the froth blowers may be licensed till 11. They probably don't close at 11. But again, we were just asking for Friday and Saturday, but we totally understand if that's not going to be accepted, we would happily accept a 10:30 finish in line with other micropubs.
Thank you, gentlemen. I follow up on that, really, and my concern is the fact that the planning permission you received did have different hours as conditions, and I appreciate this is a licensing hearing and not a planning hearing, but I think this sort of earlier finish is something that neighbours have also been asked for. You did say that you wanted an overall licence and you would then trade according to how business demands progress. So would it be important to you to close later for viability, or could you adhere to the suggested times or conditioned times from the planning permission?
Yeah, I think, for example, let's take a Sunday. Yes, when I filled in the planning application, as far as I was aware, it was what I'd want to open for. So we have put till 8 o'clock on a Sunday because actually I don't really want to open on a Sunday night, if I'm completely honest with you. However, on bank holiday weekends, I'm not saying we want to be open until 10:30 p.m, but if a pub is full of, I say a pub, a micro pub is full of people at 8 o'clock, I would be stupid to close for business needs, and it might just be that we close at 9 o'clock, 9:30. I think by requesting the licence on Sunday night till 10:30 p.m. is more about the flexibility, and it's not going to be every single Sunday. It might just be the 4 bank holidays over the year, Easter Sunday, any kind of, I don't know if Christmas Eve fell on a Sunday, anything like that. That's kind of just to give us that flexibility, really.
Thank you, Holly. That's assuaged my concerns, and you've addressed that very well. No more questions, gentlemen? Okay, I think we now move on to asking Ian Nell to give his reasons for objecting to the application.
Yeah, unfortunately, you can't forward any further information on the day of the hearing unless all parties agree, and that's the chairman and Holly. That's part of the licensing regulations. If you want them to be submitted, I think you should ask whether they can be submitted. It's a matter for you.
As chair, I have no objections. Whether my colleagues would have thoughts on that? Are these photographs of interest to us? And the applicant?
I think they should have been provided before, to be honest. So
Well, I agree with you,
I don't
but-
agree.
So the committee have no objections. Colin, what's your view?
Holly does.
So that is sufficient to say they're not to be submitted. Yep. Fine, that's clarified that. Now, Mr. Nell, can you use your microphone when speaking, please? That's the button in the middle.
Yeah.
That's it, you've got it. Thank you.
I did read Mr. Simmons' comments that he put towards the thing about noise, etc. And yes, we do get low-level noise from the cocking garden when they're out and about. But what we don't get is conversations when people are sitting on the empty reels that have been put outside the rear of the property against the planning regulations, where they sit and drink. If people go outside for a smoke or a vape, we don't hear them. But on regular occasions, people are sitting outside, especially when it's weather like this, drinking, which is not permitted by the planning, and we hear every word they are saying when we are sitting in our garden. So we are sure, if my wife and I are sitting on our patio, they can hear every word we say. And I think that is totally wrong, and it shouldn't be allowed according to the planning, because no drinking outside of the property, front or rear, was to be permitted. However, in the very first week of a temporary licence, people were sat outside, sitting on the cable reels, using them as tables and chairs, drinking. And it's happened on numerous occasions, and I could have took multiple pictures of that. As we know, this is a service yard, not a playground as such for the rear of the pub. At the planning, again, this is licensing, I realise, but going on to the planning, was informed by Mr Simmons and the crew that the empty barrels and the bin would be stored inside the spare garage. Well, they're not. They're outside the rear of the property. It's starting to look like Steptoe's yard down there, to tell you the truth. They've installed CCTV at the rear of the premises, obviously for security reasons. However, there are no signs at all saying at the rear of the tape that there are CCTV, and on at least one of the cameras, it points directly into Mr Lamb's garage door. So every time he opens his garage, people can see what vehicles are in there and other equipment, which is, to me, wrong. He used to be able to spend most of his time down in his garage working on vehicles, etc. This is now limited, very limited, because of people down there drinking and the security cameras. Mr Simmons says that these cables were there, put there to protect people when they were smoking from vehicles going down there, which is totally wrong. They were deliberately put there even before they actually opened, because planning said no tables and chairs would be permitted outside of the property. When it comes down to it, people management of the Butcher's Arms seem to think we're totally against a micropub. We are not. What we are totally against is the blatant opposition and that to what was stated in the planning. No external this and no external that. A drain cover was broken out the back of the premises. Mr Simmons says it was residents poorly driving it. It wasn't. It was obviously the heavy dray wagons that go down there to deliver the beer, or the big biffa bin lorry that goes down there to deliver and pick up. That's what broke that manhole cover, and yet Mr Simmons spouts off about all this and what we're doing. Mr Lamb replaced that cover at his own expense because Mr Simmons says he wouldn't spend any money to do it. This is why we object to this pub being... The main thing about this is the online abuse that has been created by the management team on Councillor Mrs Bond. She has had horrendous online abuse, and just recently, Mr Simmons posted a video of Mrs Bond's house and where it was in relationship to the Butcher's Arms, where the Ripon Close is, and on the video...
Sorry, Mr Snell, I have to interrupt you because this is not pertinent to the licensing application.
Well, I think it is, because if you...
I'm just being told by the legal officer that this is not pertinent. I'm sorry, I must stop that train of points you're making. So if we can proceed with stuff relevant to the licensing application. Thank you.
Well, I think it is part of the licensing, because if you condone and issue this licence, you are condoning the fact that they're not sticking to the planning, and you're also condoning the online abuse, which is totally...
I don't think this committee nor this council would condone online abuse. Let me just put that point on the table. But I appreciate you bringing it to us, but it's been ruled against by the legal officer. So can you address things that are relevant to the licensing application, which we do want to hear from you? Thank you.
Finally, if you do issue this licence, which looks like you will be, who will we be able to go to complain about it when things are not as they should be? I mean, licensing people won't be in the offices in the evenings at weekends. I very much doubt that we can. The police are already overstretched so unless there's an actual disturbance, they won't be interested in. And I personally could not approach the management team because I've already been threatened with violence by Mr Simmons, and I have a police reference number which records
Yeah,
that.
I'm sorry, we're going to have to draw this train of thought to a
Okay.
close, and I appreciate you coming to the committee and putting forward those points, but we've got to stick to licensing principles. And I think that we have the licensing officer here who will tell you that any complaints with regard to the licence you can make to City Council, and they would be followed up. Now, at this stage, I ask my colleagues on this committee to ask their questions.
The only question that I've really got is, I take on board your points about the drinking outside, etc., etc. The only question I've got is that you suggest that, well, actually stronger than suggest, that the drain cover was broken by the dray. Unless you have absolute proof of that, then it's subjective.
It's been replaced anyway by Mr Lamb, so
I'm sure it has, but for the record, it's subjective unless you have absolute proof. In the same way that it's subjective that somebody broke it by bad driving. So, in my opinion, the point is an irrelevance to this application.
Thank you, Councillor Halsey. Could you turn your microphone off for the time being and in between when you're speaking? Thank you. I think the no drinking outside, front or rear is something that the applicant should take on board. If that is happening, it must be curtailed, because that's what we would want to ensure is enforced. And the CCTV signage, I think, is something that the gentleman's point is very relevant. You need to warn people that they're on camera, as it were. And the storage of barrels, if they are being left outside, that's just good neighbourliness, and that's something that you should surely put into play. That's all I have to add to this, but I understand we now move on to Tracy Hollis, who's going to give her reasons for supporting the application. Tracy, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Mine's more of a personal reference to Holly, and why I think the Butchers Arms would be an asset to the community. Put my glasses on so I can see. I've known Holly for a number of years, and I've known Holly to be an honest, responsible and respectful member of the community. Holly is approachable to and does listen to the community around her. Holly has raised a lot of money for local causes and charities and is always keen on supporting her local community in many ways. In fact, Holly and her partner Andy guided and helped my son, who is 9 years old, to raise over £1,500 for cancer research last year. Holly, Andy and the customers, as was of the last premises licence, were inclusive of any age and always made their customers feeling welcome, from the older generation right down to the younger children. Holly is a very much valued member of the Warrington community and has recently been recognised for her charitable works. We, as a community, should be proud in embracing Holly into the village, as she and the Butchers Arms will prove to be a great asset in raising further funds for the local area. Holly strongly believes in forming strong community relationships and will embrace and listen to the community and its needs. The Butchers Arms needs to be given a chance to prove its worth. There are already many locals using the venue, and instead of opposing the Butchers Arms, maybe locals could be talking to Holly about and offer ideas to truly turn the Butchers Arms into the community hub and venue that Holly has worked so hard for it to be. That's it.
Thank you very much. Gentlemen, any questions of Tracy? Thank you for your presentation. I now move on to invite Andrew Reeds of Charnwood Brewery LLP to give his reasons for supporting the application. The floor is yours.
Thank you. First, if I can add, I didn't really had any weather that anyone could sit outside a pub for the last 6 weeks, but anyway, you did well to find it. I'm supporting Holly, who I've known for about 20 years, with this application because I myself have successfully gained 3 premises licences for micropubs, 2 of which are an effective copycat of the Butchers Arms. One an absolute copycat with no outside area, just inside in a small run of shops. And I've found them just to, in a time where we're losing our high streets and losing amenities, despite building thousands of houses, I think for people to invest in the community, in that as an actual asset as well as a community asset, it should be condoned. And I see this as something that will grow from strength to strength. And I understand that there are issues with the neighbours, and it's very clear with the planning, and yourselves will make very clear about the outside drinking, which to me seems to be the nub of the issue that we may have had here. So, and I shall, as it happens, Holly takes some of our beer, but I can assure there's no reason to do that. But I would like to see this granted because I think it's a real asset to the community.
Thank you, Andrew. Thanks for your presentation. Gentlemen? No further questions. Certainly microbreweries are something that we are seeing more of, and I think we're supportive of defending the high street's opportunity to exist with these pubs, but we've got to get it right with regard to the what neighbours have to put up with, wrong word, but experience, and I think that I'm sure the licensee is, or the potential licensee, is cognizant of that fact. Okay, I think we've done all the questioning, and we will now retire to consider what we've had put before us. Thank you. Afternoon again, everyone. Thanks for your patience. The subcommittee is convened today to hear the application for a new premises licence for the Butcher's Arms situated at Canterbury Road, Wellington, the applicant being Holly Posnett. There have been 6 representations against the licence being granted. Peterborough City Council Environment Pollution Team as a responsible authority and 5 other persons. The committee notes that none of the other statutory responsible authorities have made representations against the grant. We note that mediation has not been attempted. We have read the committee papers and heard from the applicant in person and from the spokesman for other persons. The objections to the licence being granted are an increase in late night noise in the vicinity of the premises to the detriment of residents as customers leave, noise emanating from the premises, an increase in alcohol-related antisocial behaviour in the vicinity. Comments in favour of the licence being granted, positive asset to the community by holding events and fundraisers, a meeting place for community groups, opening hours that are not excessive, no reported licensing issues with a temporary event notice, licensee operates other premises without issue. The applicant applies for the sale of alcohol on and off the premises during the following times: Monday through Thursday, 12 noon to 22:30, Friday 12 noon to 2300, Saturday 10 o'clock until 2300, and Sunday 10 o'clock until 22:30. On New Year's Eve there's a different time required, which is 12 noon to 03 hours in the morning. 12:30 that is, of course. The additional proposed conditions can be seen on pages 5 to 7 of the committee bundle. We have disregarded matters that do not relate to the licensing objectives and those that fall outside the committee's remit. In our deliberations, we have been referred to Peterborough City Council Statement of Licensing Policy, the government guidance issued under Section 182 of the Licensing Act 2003. Where relevant representations have been made, we can take one or more of the following steps to promote the licensing objectives. Grant the licence as submitted, subject to the operating schedule, mandatory conditions and additional conditions. Add, amend, alter or delete a condition on the operating schedule. Refuse to grant the licence. And the decision, we consider the operating schedule to be sufficient in promoting the licensing objectives. We therefore grant the licence as applied, incorporating the additional conditions. We also strongly suggest the applicant seeks further clarification regarding CCTV warning signage and scope and direction of the camera sighting. This does not form part of the decision. If any person is aggrieved by this decision, they have 21 days from today to appeal to the Magistrates' Court sitting in Peterborough. There's usually a fee to pay, and that ends the hearing. Thank you.